Close your eyes for a moment and imagine New York City without its skyline. No Empire State Building. No Chrysler Building. No Brooklyn Bridge stretching across the East River. No glittering towers reflecting the morning sun. No glass giants piercing the clouds. Instead, picture a quiet island covered in dense forests, rolling hills, and winding rivers. The only sounds are rustling leaves, birdsong, and the footsteps of the Lenape people, who called this land home for thousands of years. It's almost impossible to believe that this peaceful landscape would one day become the architectural capital of the world. Because New York wasn't built overnight. It was shaped over 4 centuries through ambition and innovation, through devastating fires and economic booms, through waves of immigration, engineering breakthroughs, and moments of unimaginable tragedy. Every generation left something behind. The Dutch built a trading post, the British transformed it into a colonial city. Immigrants filled its streets with brownstones and tenements. Engineers challenged gravity itself, creating skyscrapers that forever changed the way cities were built. And when disaster struck, New York didn't disappear. It rebuilt. Stronger. Taller. Bolder. Today, more than 6,000 high-rise buildings define one of the most recognizable skylines on Earth. Yet behind every tower, every bridge, every church, and every street lies a story, one of vision, resilience, and an endless desire to reach higher than ever before. So how did a small colonial settlement become a city that changed architecture forever? How did New York transform from wooden houses surrounded by wilderness into a skyline recognized in every corner of the world? This is not just the story of buildings. This is the story of human ambition carved into stone, forged in steel, and written across the sky. This is the history of architecture in New York. Chapter 1. Before New York, the land before the skyline. Long before New York became the city that never sleeps, Manhattan was a landscape of forests, rivers, hills, and wildlife. For thousands of years, the Lenape people lived here, building homes from wood and bark using materials provided by nature. Their villages were designed to blend into the environment rather than reshape it. To them, architecture was about survival, community, and harmony with the land. There were no stone monuments or towering buildings, only practical structures that reflected a deep understanding of the natural world. Everything began to change in 1609 when English explorer Henry Hudson sailed into the river that now bears his name while searching for a route to Asia. Although he never found that route, his journey revealed the region's enormous trading potential. Soon after, Dutch settlers established a permanent colony called New Amsterdam at the southern tip of Manhattan. The first European buildings were simple wooden houses with steep roofs, warehouses along the waterfront, churches, and windmills. As the settlement grew, the Dutch built a wooden defensive wall in 1653 to protect the colony. While the wall itself disappeared centuries ago, its name lives on today as Wall Street, one of the most famous streets in the world. What started as a small trading post had unknowingly laid the foundation for one of history's greatest cities. Chapter 2. A British city takes shape 1664-1776. In 1664, British warships arrived in New Amsterdam, and without a major battle, the Dutch surrendered the colony. The British renamed it New York after the Duke of York, beginning a new chapter in the city's architectural history. British influence introduced Georgian architecture, characterized by symmetry, brick construction, and elegant proportions. Wooden buildings were gradually replaced by stronger brick structures that offered greater protection against frequent fires. Churches, government buildings, and merchant homes became larger and more sophisticated, reflecting the city's growing wealth and importance. As trade expanded across the Atlantic, New York flourished as one of Britain's busiest colonial ports. Landmarks such as Trinity Church became symbols of both religious faith and economic success. Yet life in the growing city was far from easy. Fires regularly swept through crowded neighborhoods, forcing builders to improve construction methods and use safer materials. Every disaster reshaped the city, making it stronger and better organized. By the eve of the American Revolution, New York had become a thriving colonial center whose architecture reflected British power, prosperity, and ambition. Chapter 3. Building a New Nation, 1776 to 1850. The American Revolution transformed more than politics, it transformed architecture. After gaining independence, New York sought to create buildings that reflected the ideals of democracy rather than monarchy. The federal style became popular, featuring balanced designs, elegant brick facades, and refined decorative details. Soon afterward, the Greek Revival movement swept across the city. Inspired by the temples of ancient Greece, architects designed banks, courthouses, and government buildings with massive stone columns and grand entrances to symbolize freedom, justice, and democratic values. During this period, New York's population grew rapidly. Streets expanded northward, neighborhoods developed, and rows of elegant townhouses began to appear throughout Manhattan. City Hall, completed in the early 19th century, became one of the finest examples of the era's architecture. As immigration increased and commerce flourished, the city prepared for an even greater transformation. Advances in engineering and industry would soon change not only how buildings looked, but also how high they could rise. Chapter 4. Immigration builds the city. Throughout the 19th century, millions of immigrants arrived in New York seeking new opportunities. Irish families fleeing famine, Germans escaping political unrest, Italians searching for work, and Jewish immigrants escaping persecution all contributed to the city's remarkable growth. As the population exploded, architects faced a new challenge: housing millions of people in a limited amount of space. The answer was the tenement building. These narrow apartment buildings filled entire neighborhoods, often housing dozens of families under difficult conditions. While overcrowding and poor sanitation created serious problems, these buildings became the foundation of immigrant communities that shaped New York's identity. At the same time, elegant brownstone houses became popular among wealthier residents. Their distinctive sandstone facades still define many neighborhoods in Brooklyn and Manhattan today. Architecture now reflected not only wealth and power but also the dreams and struggles of ordinary people building new lives. Chapter 5. The Birth of the Skyscraper. By the late 19th century, New York had run out of room to grow outward. Land in Lower Manhattan became increasingly valuable, forcing architects and engineers to think differently. The invention of the steel frame made it possible to construct buildings much taller than traditional masonry structures, while the elevator made these upper floors practical for businesses and residents. This innovation gave birth to the skyscraper. Buildings like the Flatiron Building and the Woolworth Building completely changed the city's appearance. Their height represented more than engineering achievement. It symbolized economic ambition, technological progress, and fierce competition. Companies competed to build higher and more impressive towers, beginning a race that would define New York's skyline for decades. The city was no longer expanding across the land. It was reaching toward the sky. Chapter 6. The Art Deco Revolution. The 1920s and 1930s became one of the most extraordinary periods in New York's architectural history. Art Deco emerged as a bold new style characterized by geometric patterns, decorative metalwork, and sleek modern designs inspired by speed, industry, and optimism. Even during the Great Depression, New York continued building some of its greatest landmarks. The Chrysler Building, with its shining stainless steel crown, became a symbol of innovation and luxury. Soon afterward, the Empire State Building rose even higher, becoming the tallest building in the world upon its completion in 1931. Rockefeller Center transformed several city blocks into a masterpiece of urban planning. These buildings represented more than architecture. They embodied hope during one of America's darkest economic periods, proving that ambition could survive even in times of hardship. Chapter 7. Modernism changes the skyline. After World War II, architecture entered a new era. Decorative styles gave way to simplicity, efficiency, and clean lines. Inspired by modernist architects like Ludwig Mies van der Rohe, New York embraced the international style. Buildings such as Lever House and the Seagram Building featured glass curtain walls, steel frames, and minimalist designs that reflected the optimism of a rapidly changing world. Corporate headquarters adopted these modern towers as symbols of innovation and global business. Glass replaced stone, and open spaces replaced heavy ornamentation. The skyline became brighter, sleeker, and more futuristic. Architecture was no longer focused on decoration but on functionality and technological progress. Chapter 8. Loss, Preservation, and Renewal. The second half of the 20th century brought both triumph and tragedy. The demolition of the original Pennsylvania station in 1963 shocked the public and sparked the historic preservation movement. Citizens realized that once architectural treasures were destroyed, they could never truly be replaced. This led to stronger landmark protection laws that preserved many of New York's historic buildings for future generations. At the same time, the Twin Towers of the World Trade Center became symbols of modern engineering and global commerce. Their destruction during the September 11th attacks in 2001 forever changed the city's skyline and its people. In their place, One World Trade Center rose as a symbol of resilience, remembrance, and hope, demonstrating how architecture can help communities heal after unimaginable loss. Chapter 9. A City Reinvents Itself. Today, New York continues to evolve. Projects like the High Line transformed abandoned railway tracks into elevated parks, proving that old infrastructure could find new life. Hudson Yards introduced one of the largest urban development projects in American history, combining luxury residences, offices, parks, and cultural spaces into an entirely new neighborhood. Modern skyscrapers along billionaires row push engineering to extraordinary heights while sustainable architecture focuses on reducing environmental impact. Green roofs, energy-efficient systems, and environmentally friendly materials are shaping the next generation of buildings. The city continues balancing innovation with preservation, honoring its past while preparing for the future. Chapter 10. The Future of New York's Architecture. New York's architectural story is far from over. Rising sea levels, climate change, and rapid technological advances are forcing architects to rethink how cities are designed. Future buildings may generate their own energy, use artificial intelligence to improve efficiency, and rely on sustainable materials that reduce environmental impact. Floating neighborhoods, climate-resistant infrastructure, and smart buildings could soon become part of everyday life. For more than 4 centuries, New York has constantly reinvented itself. From Lenape villages and Dutch settlements to Art Deco masterpieces and futuristic skyscrapers, every generation has added a new chapter to the city's remarkable story. As long as New York continues to dream bigger, its skyline will continue to evolve, reminding the world that architecture is more than construction. It is the history of human ambition written in steel, stone, and glass. Every city tells a story, but few tell it as boldly as New York. For more than 400 years, this city has been constantly reinventing itself. What began as a small settlement surrounded by forests became a global symbol of innovation, resilience, and architectural excellence. From the simple homes of the Lenape people to the Dutch trading post of New Amsterdam, from elegant colonial buildings to soaring Art Deco skyscrapers, every generation has left its mark on the city's skyline. New York's architecture is more than concrete, steel, and glass. It is a reflection of the people who built it, the immigrants who arrived with hope, the engineers who challenged the limits of possibility, the architects who dared to dream bigger, and the communities that rebuilt after every setback. Its buildings have witnessed revolutions, economic booms, devastating fires, world wars, and moments of unimaginable loss. Yet each challenge became the beginning of another chapter. Every time the city was tested, it rose again, stronger, taller, and more determined than before. Today, New York continues to evolve. New skyscrapers reshape the horizon, sustainable designs prepare the city for the future, and historic landmarks stand proudly beside modern towers, reminding us that progress and preservation can exist together. Perhaps that's what makes New York so extraordinary. Its skyline is never truly finished. It is a living story, constantly being rewritten by every generation that calls this city home. As architects imagine the cities of tomorrow, New York remains both a museum of history and a laboratory for the future, a place where every building captures a moment in time and every new tower becomes part of a legacy that continues to inspire the world. Because in New York, architecture isn't just about building higher. It's about building history. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this journey through the history of New York's architecture, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video. And let us know in the comments which New York building tells the greatest story in your opinion. Until next time, keep exploring the stories hidden within the world's greatest cities.